can't join us today can be have an opportunity to take a look at this as well. We also have Jose from Reflow that will be able to provide translation support throughout the presentation as well. And the major agenda items are some introductions to the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, Reflow, the schoolyard redevelopment process, and then we want to hear from maybe Mr. Russo and Aaron about why Riley is going through this schoolyard redevelopment process. You know, what was the original interest and enthusiasm for this? And then we're going to pause for questions. And then we're going to review the second draft of the conceptual plan. And there's a couple of different ways that we're going to talk through about providing feedback to that plan. Jose, could you just, Jose, could you just provide translation through the agenda? That would be helpful.
Bienvenidos y buenas tardes a todos que vienen ahora. Por ahora tenemos una agenda que vamos a seguir, primero con unas introducciones de parte de los grupos que son parte de este proyecto. Luego también vamos a dar unos ejemplos sobre el proceso del proyecto, en cómo se empieza y cómo se termina, y vamos a tener un tiempo para preguntas y luego tener tiempo al final para poder revisar la segunda versión del plan, y luego para también poder agarrar sus comentarios sobre este plan.
So those of us that are joining for the first time here, Reflow is the nonprofit that works on community-based water projects in the Milwaukee area. We have several program areas. The program area of most connection for today's conversation is the Green and Healthy Schools program. And we work closely with community partners, including the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District and others, including CDS, who we'll introduce in a moment here, to redevelop schoolyards, to rip up asphalt and put in stormwater green infrastructure, outdoor classrooms, and other really great things that we'll take a look at in the moment as well. And then CDS is Community Design Solutions, which is a graduate program out of the UW Milwaukee. And they're working closely. They've worked with us for several years on the schoolyard redevelopment projects as well. And they are really great at helping develop the plan and the renderings that help to provide some visualizations for the schoolyard redevelopment that can really help us in the fundraising phase of development as well. And then Lisa Sasso, would you mind unmuting and introducing MMSD and why the district is supporting these schoolyard redevelopment projects?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Sasso. I'm a senior project planner with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. And MMSD, our two main functions are wastewater management and flood management. So when you flush your toilet, do your laundry, all that water comes to our facilities to treat that and return it to Lake Michigan. And green infrastructure helps to remove the capacity from our plants. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm working with schools, is to help get rid of all that hard space that you have and have that green space and to naturally soak up that water. Then beyond the environmental impacts, MMSD really wants to work on our social impacts as well. So the fact that students are going to be educated on green infrastructure, the teachers, the parents, and the communities have that space to use. I know a lot of the schools don't have green space near them, so this can be used as a community space as well. So lots of benefits, and we're very happy to support these efforts with the planning and funding and working with Reflow on this. So excited to work with you, Riley.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, and then this is a diagram that helps to explain the schoolyard redevelopment process. And I apologize, we'll pause it for a moment for translations, but we're starting with the conceptual planning phase of development. And this diagram helps to communicate that Riley is in a cohort of 5 schools that are all in the same process, and you're in the conceptual planning phase. And there are multiple cohorts of schools ahead of you that a lot of the lessons learned can be applied to the redevelopment process for Riley and your cohort as well.
En esta imagen tenemos más o menos los procesos, las diferentes fases del proceso del proyecto, empezando con la primera fase, que es planificación conceptual. Y es en esta fase en que se encuentra la escuela Riley ahorita, con parte de otras 4 escuelas en este grupo, y en totalmente tenemos ahorita 5 grupos con más o menos 5 escuelas cada grupo.
Okay, so we're going to pause and take a look at a 2-minute video about the schoolyard redevelopment process. This helps to provide some really strong visuals of what we can all expect during the conceptual planning, all the way through construction and into the maintenance and stewardship phase of development. So I'm just going to take this out real quick.
Many Milwaukee area schoolyards are in poor condition and offer little, if any, green space. Schoolyards were originally paved to reduce lawn maintenance costs, but decades of inertia have left deteriorating infrastructure that is costly to repair and impairs the environmental health of our city and the social emotional health of our children. The redevelopment process begins with schools applying to receive conceptual planning support provided by REFLO and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. Each year, 5 schools are awarded the planning grant based on their need and enthusiasm for a greener, healthier schoolyard. The year-long planning process consists of monthly green team meetings that culminate in the development of a conceptual plan document that is well supported by the school community, administration, and project partners. Schools spent over a year fundraising with support from the school district, project partners, and community. School districts hire engineering consultants to create the necessary detailed designs before construction can begin in the summer of the 3rd year of the process.
I am not going to litter because water carries trash down hills into the river or lake.
Which reminds me that our choices affect more than just ourselves. Everything is connected.
These projects don't only help our schools receive a new and better playground, they're also helping the environment and making a positive change in our community.
An increasing body of research underscores that students' access to green schoolyards can result in better academic outcomes, increased engagement and enthusiasm, improved social emotional skills, and decreased childhood obesity. Redeveloped schoolyards also offer many other benefits, including improved stormwater management, biodiversity, community engagement, and meaningful STEAM curricular connections.
Visit reflowh2o.com.
So right there, this last slide helps to communicate the diversity of partners that are really important to move these projects forward. And yeah, so this helps to just kind of provide some example of what we can expect as Riley goes through the schoolyard redevelopment process. And so those images, the video help to communicate the whole process all the way through maintenance and stewardship. And we just want to articulate that Riley is in the very beginning phases of this process, and we're in the conceptual planning phase. We'll be meeting every month throughout 2021 to iteratively improve upon the conceptual plan, with the exception of over summer. And there'll be multiple times, multiple opportunities for everyone to be able to provide feedback on the conceptual plan. And then throughout 2022 will be the fundraising phase of development. And if we're successful in fundraising, we'll be able to go into construction in the summer of 2023 at Riley, as well as the other schools in your cohort. And for reference, with MPS and MMSD and many project partners, we were able to raise about $3.4 million last year to support the last cohort of schools. And it's a huge effort, and schools raise money through different fundraisers. And then there's lots of grant writing, lots of partner development, and that is all to come. And it's really set up by what's in the conceptual plan. And so this first year is really important, and we're going to make sure that we talk through the components as we get further through the process.
I just changed that.
Otra vez más o menos una imagen similar, enseñando las fechas del proceso. Pero aquí con la flecha amarilla estamos enseñando que la escuela está en principios de esta primera fase. Primero terminando hasta diciembre de este año, entonces va a haber varias oportunidades para que todos puedan dar sus comentarios en el plan conceptual. Y luego también, si todo va bien, siguiendo este plan, luego vamos a entrar en la segunda fase en el segundo año con una recaudación de fondos y si todo va bien ahí, más o menos finalizando el diseño en el tercer año y en ese mismo año empezando la construcción y los pasos que siguen después de eso.
Okay. At this time, if I could ask Mr. Russo or Aaron, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and just talking us through, why Riley was originally interested in going through this redevelopment process. What were some of the original inspirations and thoughts for, why were you enthusiastic about going through this process?
Sure. So, I'll take that. So I'm Erin Lund. I'm a parent here at Riley. And I work with Mr. Russo and Ms. Marta on a regular basis. And one of the reasons why, we as a parent group looked at this opportunity and thought it was really important to us was because we had started some projects around greening our school, right? So we planted some garden beds, and what we started to find was there was a lot of interest in a lot of community building around green infrastructure. And one of the big opportunities with our school is ultimately this play yard, right? So, we share a common dislike of our schoolyard as many other schools do. It's just all concrete, right? So as we dug in a little bit more, we found that, our concrete pad, this little itty bitty pad here, generates about 1.1 million gallons of polluted runoff that runs into the river. And what's unique about our location is that we have Barron Park and the Kinnickinnick River right in our backyard. And in our front yard, as you can sort of see in the top right, right in front of the school, we have 4th Street, which is a pretty busy street, as well as I-94. Both generate a lot of traffic, noise, wind. And so as we look at this, we sort of have this odd positioning where, we have a highway in our front yard and a park in our backyard. And so what we feel like is the opportunity overall is to reduce our environmental impact and build our community and build our equitable.
What you need to do is write your sentence and then you're done. The book was extra sweetie and everybody was right.
Hey, Carrie. Oh, there. Sorry. So anyway, so we have this highway in the front, park in the back, and what the opportunity is to continue to build our community around the green interests that we've all found together, build upon those opportunities by sort of connecting what is really an empty open lot to a park and really build sort of this educational and community space that brings equity to our community. And so I think that this is something that I think we all share as sort of a common goal and really look forward to kind of moving forward in this process because I think it really has the opportunity to serve our community in a really beneficial way from now and into the future. And I think it's the impact, it can be really important and we're really looking forward to it.
Cool. Thank you. So at this point, if there are any elected representatives on the line, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and introducing yourself, that would be really helpful. And then also, if there are any community members that are partners of Riley that are attending as well, if you wouldn't mind just putting in the chat your name and affiliation and maybe what you're really excited about with the schoolyard redevelopment as well, that would be really helpful just so we can make sure that we have everyone accounted for as well. Okay. So with that being said, so what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at the updated conceptual plan. So last month we got together with the school green team. We got some feedback on a first draft, and we took that feedback and we're going to review that today. So that's exciting. And this slide helps to communicate that there are multiple ways to provide that feedback. We're going to walk through using IdeaFlip, which is the same software we used last month. But before we break for today, we do want to just kind of talk through some of the different opportunities to provide feedback as well through Google Forms, which is in English and Spanish, and then also sharing a recorded version of this meeting as well. And so if I kind of switch over. So this is the board, and Lisa Neeb just dropped the IdeaFlip board in the chat, so you can jump into that IdeaFlip board as well. This board is set up into kind of 3 different chapters, so to speak. That first area here, the lists all of the really great ideas that Riley provided, the Riley community provided in the schoolyard use surveys. So this lists all the different features like gardens, weather stations, monkey bars, Maya Ball, US map, a number of different activities. And then, well, I should say different features. And then the activities are really helpful too. So making sure that the schoolyard is supportive of the things that you would like to do outdoors. And so this is a really awesome list of many activities that you guys would like to accomplish. And then from the school green team and from those that responded to the schoolyard use survey, we got some really great maps and some thoughts and ideas here that helped to develop the conceptual plan. And then, like I said, last time we had a first draft. There was some really great feedback that we had, some open questions. We took this feedback and we updated it to the second draft. And today, what we want to do is we want to go through the same plan, the same prompts. Number 1, what do we like about the current plan? What are the opportunities for improvement? And then number 3 are open questions. And Jose, if you wouldn't mind just pausing right there and just kind of introduce those 3 prompts, and then we'll dive into the updated plan drawing.
Si pudieron ver en el chat, pusimos un enlace en que pueden accesar ahorita para poder entrar a esta página de internet para poder ver el plan. Ahí van a poder ver la imagen del primer plan que construimos, tomando los comentarios y las ideas de todos que pudieron responder a nuestra encuesta. Pero ahorita lo que estamos viendo es en la segunda versión, en donde tenemos un espacio para decir qué nos gusta de la segunda versión. Hay oportunidades que se puede mejorar y luego también un espacio para que pueda poner sus preguntas.
So the other part of this is Burke from Community Design Solutions. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and walking us through this plan. Before we do that, I do want to just say that Burke has also created a perspective drawing. That's one of 3 that we'll be creating. And so we get to kind of see a glimpse of what that new space could look like, or one of the new spaces could look like. And again, this is the second draft. So there's opportunity for modifications and tweaks as we get into this. And so Burke, if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through some of the major features here, and then we can talk through comments after we get through the overall concept.
Yeah, of course. Hi, my name is Burke Adams. I'm with CDS, and I guess I'll start by saying happy Earth Day, everybody. And so with the second draft, I guess if everyone's familiar with the first, or if this is the first time you're seeing it, I kind of started up in the upper left corner where a lot of the drop off happens. And so I think looking at maybe if we just kind of want to sequentially walk through the schoolyard as you enter the space, but really looking at kind of beautifying the main entrance space, as well as giving an opportunity for these loose parts play and climbing, which are some really great like log structures that the students can play on. And then as you open up into the schoolyard, really seeing a majority of the asphalt being taken over by this stormwater management bioswale. And so having native plantings and different crossing opportunities for students to have their own little pathways and outlooks, moments to take a break, and having that bioswale kind of, I guess, bordered by an agility path for different physical education activities, biking, running around. And we've created these little agility nodes as well that have kind of a centric opportunity either for murals and artwork, or even kind of down more towards the Foursquare, seeing how you have opportunities for planters, for trees and benching that you can get kind of a 360 view depending on where you sit. I guess if we go central back to the bioswale, this area kind of gives the students an opportunity for an outdoor classroom as well. So looking in front, kind of being bordered by these art posts that Justin said that, you know, reclaiming some of these old fences, we're able to have all of these different fence posts as well that students can paint, decorate, and kind of giving a backdrop to their outdoor classroom that you see in that little crescent in front. And then moving down, kind of maintaining the Foursquare area and giving students, again, the opportunity to just have some quick paintings that give them, you know, some games to play with. We've got Gaga Ball on the north and south side of the bioswale towards the parking lot. And I think in between that, something that the first draft didn't have, but now we're seeing is some musical instruments. So any students that want to have a creative opportunity during their recess will have. Basketball court, for this second draft, we thought it was a good idea to kind of consolidate the programming and using more of a multi-use court with multiple markings for different games. So whether you want to play basketball, futsal, or shuttle run for physical education class, the court will be versatile. So it's not just taking up one sport. Kind of giving a backdrop for some Maya ball, you know, having some hoops that students can then, you know, hit a ball through and practice that in front of some world maps, giving benching along the school side, and then moving towards a point that the first draft didn't necessarily address, which was kind of beautifying the secondary entrance or the front entrance of the school. So by placing planters, again, with these 360 benches, native grasses and indigenous plants will have an opportunity to give kind of like a humble beautification of the front entry space. And moving down, the tot lot will stay existing, and then in the southern part, what's up? Sorry.
Can we pause right there for translation?
Sure.
I'll say good luck. The major points of the bioswale and the entrance and some of the major features would be really great if we could introduce those concepts.
En esta imagen es más o menos un poco más detalles sobre qué es lo que ahorita están enseñando en este plan. En lo que se puede poner. Claro que ahí tienen varios árboles para poder tener un poco más espacio verde. En las entradas todavía está un poco abierto. Y luego también ahí lo que miran, que se mira como más o menos como un riñón, es el drenaje sostenible, en donde se va a poder mantener las aguas pluviales, pero también ahí luego abajo. Es más o menos un área que se puede convertir, que se va a hacer un aula al aire libre. Y luego también hay unos postes ahí para que pueda más o menos tener el espacio ahí. Y también hay unos caminos alrededor para que puedan hacer diferentes actividades los estudiantes en corriendo, ahí descubriendo el espacio. Pero también diferentes áreas están dedicados a varios juegos de pelota, baloncesto siendo un ejemplo, y luego también unos mapas abajo. Y luego también había una idea de hacer una de las entradas de las escuelas, una de las entradas de la escuela o la entrada principal de la escuela un poco más mejor. Entonces, por eso ahí también tienen unas imágenes para poder instalar unos árboles o algo un poco más chiquito así.
And Burke, before you describe the southern side, I do want to just show a couple things. So those circular planters that Burke introduced on the entranceway, just to provide a visual of what that could look like, where it serves as like a bench and a planter that could house like shade tree. So parents picking up, that could be great. This could also house like exhibit for art activities underneath here, or it could be grasses, native grasses that could be under this space as well. But if you can kind of imagine that creating a kind of a grand entrance in the big opening of the school, to the school entrance. So that's what we're talking about right here. That's what we mean by planter benches. A bioswale. I know we looked at this visual last time, but this is what we can expect. So this is a type of green infrastructure that manages stormwater where it falls. And so this is what we can kind of expect, where there's these walking paths that go through there. Students can do biodiversity counts and can learn about different pollinator species. within that bioswale, and on the conceptual plan, it's a pretty large bioswale. So that's a really cool, unique space that can be able to manage stormwater and create a unique ecosystem for student discovery. Native plantings, this is kind of what we can expect from a mature native planting growth, where it comes up maybe 3 or so feet. You can see some flowering plants that support pollinator species as well. And then Burke, since I know we wanted, if you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing this, because we were just talking about this.
Yeah, the north part, yep. So
Yeah.
This would be kind of looking in from the drop-off corner in the north west side of the schoolyard. And so if you're looking at the school, kind of giving these visuals of these loose parts in play, the climbing, having this, agility path that encompasses the bioswale in the middle, noticing there's some stone pathways for students to meander through, and then giving that boundary with art posts. So looking at these chain link fence posts that, you can paint on, you can change, they can be versatile. You could post a bat house on there, a bird house, string, maybe some student-made gourd birdhouses or decorations as well for different festivals or performances or outdoor activity. And then giving, just a little nuance to some of those planter benches as well, having the 4 square in back, and then noticing the agility nodes over on the right and upper right section of the asphalt.
Cool. So let's just kind of talk through the lower half of the schoolyard.
Yeah, so I think the southern part is going to kind of maintain a different personality. So not as active, but more passive play. So still kind of getting that opportunity for some loose parts and climbing. And then moving kind of the outdoor classroom from the first draft, or now what's becoming the greenhouse, away from the street, but having benches, rainwater barrel collection sites located, just north of the raised garden beds that y'all have. And then as you move more towards the parking lot, giving an opportunity for, some lavender, some kind of olfactory, sensory, good smelling, mindfulness opportunities for students, parents, teachers to then kind of transition into a new path that could link Riley up to Barron Park. And I think just overall, a lot of the trees, so any of these smaller, brighter green trees would be proposed. So kind of bordering Riley's schoolyard with a lot of stormwater management beds with new trees, street trees within grates along the street side, making sure that we're creating that barrier for noise, as well as kind of some visual blocking. And then also proposing a really large amount of evergreens that would then have color throughout the year and be able to still provide a lot of privacy away from the highway, to give Riley more of its own defiant private space.
So yeah, just to kind of underscore what we're showing here is a significant amount of tree plantings in the city of Milwaukee right of way. That would mean that there's a really strong partnership with the City of Milwaukee Forestry Department in particular, and that will really help, hopefully, to help buffer the sound coming off of the freeway. And it comes in layers, so there's multiple rows of tree plantings to help provide more buffering as we get into the middle of the schoolyard. Jose, would you mind walking us through some of those major concepts?
En el área sur de la escuela va a haber un área con pedazos de madera para que puedan construir niños ahí y también para que puedan subir para arriba y para abajo. Y más o menos también dedicar un área para que puedan plantar lo que quieran plantar. Y luego también unos jardines para poder hacer actividades del olfato. Y luego la mayoría de cosas es los diferentes árboles que miran, porque andaban quieren buscar algo para poder bloquear el sonido que viene de la carretera y luego también del tráfico que pasa por ahí, y más por la privacidad. Entonces tienen en mente una especie específicamente de árbol para que pueda dar esas calidades durante todo el año solar.
Okay, so just a couple of other visualizations that we can take a look at here. just to kind of ground ourselves in what we can kind of expect. So tree plantings, this was a tree planting that was done in the last cohort of schools, especially trees that are in the schoolyard, making sure that they're extra protected for the first couple of years until they get established. Looking at underground cisterns underneath that bioswale to manage more stormwater. Again, where it falls, this is at Alice's Garden. In this case, we're capturing stormwater off of the asphalt schoolyard at Brown Street Academy and repurposing it for the large urban farm there. And here is another example of what we're calling art posts. This is an example at Academy of Accelerated Learning. Lots of opportunity to kind of decorate and then also engage students in particular through the arts on the schoolyard. We talked about these kind of bench planters, especially in the front of the school. This Burke had mentioned kind of wood climbers. This is a good example at Clement Avenue School that is a popular feature. And then when we talk about agility pathways, these would be like really bright, colorful places with balance and hop and skip that kind of weave around different schoolyard elements and provide different types of play that can be students can kind of more intuitively figure out and have different spaces throughout the schoolyard. And then Gaga Ball, for those that may not be familiar with Gaga Ball, this is a good visual example of that. It's kind of a less intensive kickball, so to speak, or a less intensive dodgeball. Students are provided a small rubber ball and they roll it, and it has to hit students below the waist. And it's intended to be more inclusive, and students tend to really love Gaga Ball. So they come in different sizes, but they can range, maybe between 10 to 15 plus students that can be in that space at any given time. Okay, so zooming back out. So what we'd like to do, and Lisa, if you wouldn't mind just dropping that link again in the chat. So we want to walk us through, number one, what do we like about the current conceptual plan? What do we think can be improved? And then do we have open questions? And I'm just going to walk us through how to respond to those prompts. So once you get into this idea flipboard, on the right-hand side, you'll see some stationery and these kind of Post-it notes. You can pick any color you'd like. For our purposes today, the colors won't mean anything, but I'm just going to kind of left click and drag and drop into those different areas. And so if I like something, maybe I like the bioswale and walking through it. That's something that I like. We can put a Post-it there. And then also if you want to scroll down, if you see something that somebody else said, you can go ahead and put a thumbs up or thumbs down. And this could be a really strong way to get some feedback on what we're looking at today. And as please feel free to jump into there. In a moment, we'll introduce the Google form as well as another way to provide feedback. But I just want to maybe, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind just kind of unmuting yourself and provide your perspective on like what you're seeing, what are some things that you like, just to kind of jumpstart the conversation here.
Yeah, so I think this draft is a really great improvement from the first one. I think you guys did a really good job of incorporating a lot of the feedback that we had. I really appreciate on the, what would that be, the southern end of the schoolyard, where there is a lot of opportunity for gardening, food, and mindfulness, which was one of the overall requests from many people, in terms of all of our feedback sessions. And I think this gives us that unique opportunity to connect to the park. And so the more that we can do, and I know Ryan from Journey House dropped his information into the chat as one of our partners. And one of the conversations we've been having is that this gives us sort of that opportunity to build curriculum as well as the partnership, and all of the work that is happening in Barron Park with Journey House and that partnership. So I really like that, how that end is starting to come together. I think that's great. The grand entrance and sort of that opportunity for art, I think will help us, incorporate the more of our school's culture. And, I think that's so important to the identity and DNA of our school. So I think that that's going to be a really important player. And I really love the open area, sort of the big play pad where there's the bioswale, and then you utilized our basketball courts in a number of different ways. So I think that gave them multi-purpose, which opened it up for more green space, more learning space, and a better intuitive learning space than we had before. Because I think the last time it was down in the corner, right where the intersection of like Chase, the highway, 4th Street all came together, which would have been really noisy and not as efficient. So, I think we're moving in the right direction and it looks really good.
Anyone else want to unmute and just kind of verbalize anything that you're thinking about? Opportunities for improvement, good things that we like to see, things that we can kind of enhance here. Any open questions?
Awesome. Actually, okay, sorry. Question, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you mentioned that you were going to be working with Department of Public Works Forestry. I noticed that you're putting trees on the west side of 4th Street. Just be aware that there's a jurisdictional line right there. So you probably will also have to talk to WISDOT.
Got it. Yep.
I just looked it up on the quarter section. So
thank you for that. Yes. Yeah.
And just as a little secret, Dawn works for the Department of Public Works. So she's kind of like an insider with all that information. So she's kind of a secret weapon there.
Awesome. Dawn, we might ask that if for your help in trying to negotiate some of those conversations then.
And then, well, on the east side of the street, you were talking about tree grates. Has there been a proposal about the size?
Yeah, so that not yet.
Okay.
That is, we appreciate that. This is busing and drop off and load. So we wouldn't necessarily want to like remove that strip of asphalt and put in grass because that would get worn down really quick. So Burke's point about putting in tree grates, something to protect the trees while also providing space where students and families can walk over the top is the intent for that.
Okay, so just one thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes folks will recommend doing like a 4x4 grate. Forestry, I think the size that they're looking for is at least by a 3x8, or they have a specific size, and I'm blanking on what it is at the moment. The concern there, interestingly enough, is that if you make the grate too small, the tree chokes because it doesn't get enough water.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Very good point. Yeah. So I think a healthy conversation with the forestry department would be excellent in this case to make sure that we're doing everything with forestry's expertise on this.
Okay. And I'm wondering, are you talking with Scott Barron or?
Yep. So Scott is someone that we've engaged with over the course of several years. In this case, Riley's, this tree planting is a bit more than what we've done with other schools. Given the street noise that's surrounding Riley, I feel like this is a kind of like an order of magnitude more than what we've done with other schools. So we've certainly talked with Scott, but this is a different level of engagement in my mind than what we've done with other schools with the forestry department.
Okay, cool. Well, I have to say, I'm kind of digging this. I've been out of the loop, so yeah. So then looking at the south end, then the water collection would then help with those raised planters that we've got that are south of the fence line, I take it?
Right on. Yep. So
okay.
The thought here, and I could bring up a photo of the greenhouse at Longfellow and Journey House, but this, in my mind, this is a step up from a hoop house. This is actually, what I'm going to do? I'm just going to zoom up because we have that photo up here. Here we go. So this is kind of a visual. We have raised bed gardens, and then there's a step up, which is the hoop house. This is at Burdick, and then kind of at the end of that spectrum is a full-on greenhouse. And Ryan, who's on the call from Journey House, was a big part of making that greenhouse happen at Longfellow as well. But what we're installing this year is rainwater harvesting off of that roof to support the irrigation of the crops inside of that greenhouse. And so same kind of deal. What we're showing here at Riley would be a bit longer and kind of more opportunity for rainwater harvesting.
Fun, thanks.
Ryan, maybe this is a good point to see what you're thinking about, especially with the connection to Barron Park.
I think this is a fantastic start. I like the intentional connection between the schoolyard and the park. As I've chatted with Aaron and Martha and others over the past several months, we're just continually trying to figure out how events and programming can be overlapped between Barron and between Riley, so that we can maximize our impact. And so if there were families coming to a baseball game at Barron Park, which we're going to regularly have when we get a little bit out of the pandemic, could there be activities going on within the schoolyard space so that they can kind of take advantage of that audience that's already coming to the park? Historically, as anybody's familiar with the park, it's been a big challenge in terms of security, maintenance. It's a big reason why Journey House took it over, is it wasn't prioritized by the parks. They have a very underfunded budget as a whole. And so this wasn't one of the areas that they put much effort or time into. And part of that is it's naturally disconnected from the neighborhood. There's not a lot of houses that are super close. It's really just the school, and then it's divided up by the river and by the different streets. So the more intentional programming and the more consistent we have programming opportunities to bring people into space, to bring eyes into that space, the better. So for me, I'm thinking more and more about what's the maximum event programming opportunity that we can bring to Barron Park, both that's organized and more organic, unorganized events to want to draw community members to that space. There's still ongoing challenges with homeless population coming in and out of Barron, and others that want to misuse that park as an opportunity to conduct activity that we're not looking to promote. So I think the activation of the playground is going to be a great opportunity. I don't have yet any silver bullets beyond what you've offered. So again, this is a great start, and we're really excited at Journey House to support this.
So on that connection to Barron Park, so I know that was a big component and feedback from the last time. So I do want to kind of shine a light on that. Is the trade-off is what we're talking about is what we're showing here. And again, this is draft, and there's multiple opportunities to adjust this as we keep moving forward. But the trade-off here is losing some parking stalls to more formalize that connection to Barron Park, and that's something that we'll want to make sure is like the intentional decision. Especially, this would be a good point. So if there's any feedback anyone wants to chime in about those parking stalls, if you want to respond to that in the prompts that we have on the side, this would certainly be something that's important to make sure that everyone is on board with.
I think it's a very awesome idea. There are not many parking spots there. And that little corner is still a lot of parking spaces available. And that provides that really natural connection with the park. So I think it's fantastic.
And I know in some of the feedback that we had gotten too was some ideas about, taking more of the parking to be able to elongate the schoolyard as well. If that's still of interest, that's a, kind of moving further along that spectrum as well. What we're showing
That's
is,
plenty. The initial ones are plenty because, yeah, we
Yeah.
need, now that we are in session, a lot of parking spaces are utilized. Not only by staff, but for families to pick up their kids.
yeah. So what this is showing is the existing layout for parking on the north side and losing a handful of stalls on the south end here. Moving this retaining wall that's here would be very expensive, $100,000+ to be able to move that to change some of these features. So what we're showing is what we hope is that, happy compromise in being able to support the connection to Barron Park, provide some more green space, in this case, mindfulness. If there's interest in making some of these trees fruit bearing, and so this becomes sort of an orchard space that could be well connected with the greenhouse as well, if that is of interest. We're not, we haven't gotten that quite far yet with talking about different types of species, but if you do feel like that's of interest, please make sure to put that into the opportunities for improvement or the ideas to expand on. And then what I do want to another kind of big component to this is we're emphasizing the outdoor classroom and stormwater management. In other discussions too, we were talking about, do we want to have a large track and field type feature? And I do just want to double check in that, the outdoor classroom is something we want to optimize for in the stormwater management and more kind of the naturalization of the space. And that we're comfortable with the basketball and futsal being in the same kind of mixed use kind of sport court. And if there's any, if anyone sees any more needs for more gross motor activities, and if there's any opportunity to kind of blend that into what we're looking at right now.
Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
All right. So I believe in the first draft, there was a larger scale futsal court, and I certainly can appreciate you added several different features that came up in the surveys, which is great. I think connection to the park is great. A lot of these things are fantastic. I think it's going to be a very well received plan for the majority of families. However, in that first draft, I think there was a larger scale soccer multi-use space, whether that be grass or AstroTurf or sport court. So I'm curious if there's initial plans in this in creating the basketball / futsal. Is that just painted lines, still concrete? My concern is that we're somewhat there's obviously plenty of concrete space there. I'm just concerned that we're reducing the amount of overall play space that would be a safe, green, natural space that for those gross motor movements. So just clarity on that and just throwing out those ideas.
Yep. So yeah, this basketball and futsal, my opinion would be to remove that existing asphalt and put down new painted asphalt with new painted play to make sure that we're getting the most amount of life out of that. If you can imagine, like this would be not only painted for futsal and basketball and other sports, but the hoop underneath the hoop would be like a futsal goal as well. So it's all like one structure that's there. So depending on who's using that court, it could double as multiple purposes. But you're right, it would be a hardscape as opposed to like a synthetic turf soccer field. The synthetic turf soccer fields, if I kind of zoom into some of the other school projects, those have been done. Here's a good one at Longfellow. So that can certainly happen as well. And in this case, the underneath here, there's a large underground cistern that manages stormwater as well. So in that case, if that is the direction that we wanted to go with this, because the stormwater is all going to the low point on the schoolyard, that would realistically have to go in the middle of the schoolyard. So that's a significant change, and that's something we can certainly talk about, because that would manage stormwater as well, but that would, you know, optimize for kind of the athletic components outside, instead of the kind of the more natural outdoor classrooms. And we've seen that on different schools, and it's just a different approach with different schools.
So yes, that makes sense. Being a soccer focused organization, we've installed fields in other areas that we've put those cisterns underneath. I understand that's a big project, and it adds quite a bit of expense to this overall project. So I know that can be a very limiting factor. With a bioswale, I see that there's like stepping stones and such through there, but in your experience, have you seen youth using those spaces as like free play areas, or is that a like prairie grass native plants that, you know, you shouldn't be running through? So I guess I'm curious if the overall bioswale area, which looks fairly large in that playground area, is that something that would be used, or is it essentially just a path through like you're showing on the screen there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that how it gets programmed is a big one. So I think there's opportunity from like an educational perspective, and there are multiple lessons that we can share from other schools that have bioswales on their schoolyards to be able to talk through how the, you know, educators use it during class time. During recreational, you know, if it's recess, you know, I was out actually at this school today, and they had recess outdoors, and you could see students playing foursquare around here. Some of the students were balancing on the logs around here. Some behind this picture, there's some more logs and stumps. Some students were sitting on those, kind of just having side conversations. Students like to kind of balance on some of these features as well. We've seen students like bike through this area as well, which is an interesting. It has, you know, it's kind of like it's kind of goes up and down. So that's cool and that's fun. I think given the size that we're talking about with Riley, I think there's more opportunity to kind of have different crisscrossing paths. So there's more opportunity for students to make choices on which direction they go. If we want to get creative with this and think through, you know, like maybe these can have, you know, different numbers, like act as like hopscotch through there. I think there's, depending on how far we want to go with that, I think that there's opportunity to expand on this. But you're right, like this is a stormwater management feature. It's really great for educational purposes. And then we'd have to start getting creative about how that can further support gross motor outside of some of the balance features and maybe some of the biking for the smooth pathways. I think, you know, some of these could be, if we wanted to change, you know, one of these legs so that it's like a hop where you hop between them. So it's not just kind of like all, you know, one surface. It could be different types of textures that go through. So maybe some are wood and logs, and they go through that way as well.
Piggybacking on what John had said, I would also encourage you to consider a soccer field. I would just say, from both the perspective of watching the playground redevelopment at Longfellow and Journey House, it's, I would say, easily the most utilized feature within our playground space, both during school hours, during recess, but also after hours. And that goes back to the sort of organic, unprogrammed activity within that space that I think is going to be important. So I think, you know, and particularly the near Southside community that it's in, I can't think of any other nearby spaces where there's a designated soccer field. And so I think you'll get some nice organic attraction of kids coming into that space even after hours to play pickup games of soccer and so forth.
The only thing I would add to that too is, again, just if I'm being objective in terms of probably the number one ask or ask, like students, you know, parents, staff, the soccer fields or a bigger play on the soccer field was something that that I think everyone responded to. So, you know, again, that may be an intentional trade-off one way or the other, you know, whether, you know, the classroom space and the motor skill activities sort of space. So just adding that as well for perspective.
So what I'm hearing is changing this to optimize for kind of soccer field right in the middle here, and then doing a loop around here for track and field. Those balls would end up kind of going this way, so just kind of be cognizant of that. The outdoor classroom, we'd have to kind of get creative about how that goes. Maybe that kind of loops around like this. We'll do some more thinking about that one, but that's the direction that I'm hearing. Just those three voices. If there's anyone that feels strongly about the bioswale, the next iteration that we would be talking about would be changing that. But this, I just want to be really clear. This would be like a synthetic turf soccer field. It wouldn't be like a grass soccer field.
I have a quick question. We had, I think, a soccer field on the playground for some time, like a year and a half ago. I'm wondering how much that was used outside of planned programming.
So Milwaukee Scores, our organization, we installed that field. It was about, I believe that was 2 years ago, and it had full boards along the edges. So more so like an indoor soccer or hockey rink, essentially. It was still the concrete at the base, but boards along the sides to keep the ball contained. We saw that it was, I mean, our organization focuses primarily on soccer. So, you know, our programming immediately after school used it very regularly, daily. Outside of the after school hours, I'm not often there on the weekends or evenings. So Principal Russo or any community members, if you've noticed any use on that, if you could chime in, that would be great.
There wasn't, to the best of my knowledge, there wasn't much weekend use, but however, during the daytime, we had a schedule of for the usage of that soccer field because all the students wanted to be there. So during recess time, we had a rotational schedule, and we also incorporated it into part of our soccer unit by the gym teacher. It was very, very popular. It's so popular that a lot of students used to sneak in without it being their turn. So we had to monitor that also. So the answer is it was very popular.
So Principal Russo, like, so with that being said, your thoughts, I'm curious about changing the bioswale and outdoor classroom to be a large synthetic turf soccer field. Is that something
Can
that
we
you
make it a little bit smaller?
Yeah,
Like,
it would be very, very popular amongst our student population.
instead of the Gaga pit or the Gaga ball that is in the kind of in the end of the parking lot. Another one, this one, yep.
Yep.
So maybe something like, you know, kind of divide the space, because I think at the bio, well, it's very important too. I mean, it's the soccer is fundamental for our community, but I was just thinking that maybe we could divide that space in a little bit, you know, I don't know. Could we have both instead of one?
So yeah, so this is what we showed last time.
Yeah, that's okay. Yep. So instead of that, so what it says, that sport there, futsal? What is
Yep.
that? Yeah, futsal. Could we put the soccer field there?
Yep. So that would be, yes. So that would be like a small synthetic turf soccer field. right there.
I
We
think that
gotta
would be a
still have-
better idea, honest.
Okay, and then keeping the outdoor classroom sort of like how we're showing it here.
Yep.
This is soccer country. Hmm.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
have- everybody would be happy with that, the partner, both.
that's going to be my question is if, on the second version, you could just, if there's less interest or like, I think, yeah, this first version where there's just one Gaga ball and I think I agree. I think that's might be better.
Cool. So like, yeah, I think one of the reasons why we shifted gears here was because of the interest in having like more natural spaces. So I think what we could do is maybe we try to figure out how this bioswale can be enlarged so you have more natural plantings as well, that this outdoor classroom can kind of be embedded within that bioswale to help to meet the need of an interest of trying to make sure that your Montessori program can connect with nature on the school ground as well.
So I have a quick question. So since we're kind of looking at the soccer field as being kind of like the big draw, do we need to have the basketball court? And could we in some way make that area be a little bit greener instead of having two fields within that same area?
A lot of schools that we work with are so you guys have somewhat of a smaller schoolyard. So that is a big one. Was we're kind of responding to this plan shows a lot of like gross motor, to your point. So like that, a lot of like heavy rec. A lot of schools of your size are looking more towards like a half basketball court. And that's certainly an option as well. The caveat to putting like the outdoor classroom space here is that it's so close to the street, where the street noise would be problematic. So thinking through like a natural space.
That's a good caveat to keep in mind, but anything will be an improvement over the exposure to highway air and noise that we have currently. So I see what you're saying about that location within the planned area, but it will still be a solid improvement.
I agree. I think that just giving the kids a chance to be able to go out and to not be enclosed indoors, especially during the summer when it gets so hot inside the building. And one of the concerns that I have is that I see one outdoor classroom. Am I mistaken on that?
And so this, in my mind, there are two. So there's one in the middle of the schoolyard here, and then there would be one near the greenhouse that we can maybe show more about the benches and activities that can happen around that greenhouse.
Because that was kind of a big concern for me, especially with everything that's happening, like with pandemic and whatnot. With the kids that are going back to school, how can we get them outside more so that they're not all enclosed inside that same building, right? So is it possible for us to flip the bioswale around and to divide it so that we have one outdoor classroom to the back and one towards where the basketball field is, for example, so that we can have an extra outdoor classroom? Because there's going to be several, we might be able to combine different classrooms together so that they can work at the same time, but it also gives more kids a chance to be outside.
Yeah. I do want to say also that path to Barron Park, that could serve as an outdoor classroom facility as well. So explain, so I think let's go back to that second version up here. So can you explain what you mean by flip the bioswale around?
So right now you have that big chunk of green going up on the northern side, right? Mm-hmm. So can that chunk of green run more diagonal from the northwest corner towards the southeast corner? And so we can have that outdoor classroom be more on the upper left-hand corner of that soccer court, right? Soccer field or whatever. And then have on that lower half where that basketball court is, have that be a different classroom. So that that green space kind of separates the two areas so that they can have that separate course format,
Gotcha.
I guess.
Yeah. That could work. Any thoughts about a full court basketball court? Does anyone feel strongly that that's something that needs to remain a full court basketball court?
As a sports organization, I am for a half court. I think a lot of playground spaces are going to the half court at this point. A easier game to play for students, and oftentimes it's adults who would be playing full court. So as a youth focused facility or playground area, I think a half court would be sufficient for this site.
So I think what I'm hearing, so we're going to kind of carve this half court, and then we're going to try to maybe kind of create some tree plantings that help buffer around there. And we're going to try to kind of create a little nook here for an outdoor classroom there. And that maybe help to support, like, as parents come through here, maybe that's like also doubles as seating for pickup as well. And then we have some separation here with the green space, outdoor classroom, maybe more central over here. We'll have to play with the dimensions here to make sure that we still have room for futsal on the synthetic turf field that has a large underground cistern to help manage stormwater as well. And then we'll also have I'm just going to zoom down to the other one. Oops. Just to kind of reiterate what we're showing on the greenhouse, and then pathway down to or over to Barron Park with some benches and lavender, possibly if there's interest in having orchard plants or orchard trees down here as well.
Hi there, me again. So my daughter's actually in the CLC at the school. So I'm gonna like second or third the soccer field. Just because, you know, she is learning a lot of soccer, and I don't want to take that away from her. And I know when she did the survey, she didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I think she was thinking swings. So, and then orchard sounds really cool. And I have to admit, I can't figure out how to make the Flipboard thing work. So I'm just verbally giving you.
So that's a great transition here, because I know we're over time here. So please feel free to continue to respond to this idea flip board. This will be open for the next, Lisa, would you, it's open until next
April
week?
30th, next week, Friday.
Perfect. And then I do just kind of want to shift over here. So there is a Google form, and Lisa just dropped that in the chat as well. I'm just going to show what that looks like. It's in English and in Spanish. You can scroll through here. We're asking, you can download the current draft plan. You can see that. And then same sort of prompts, what do you like about it? And then this helps to kind of gauge level of interest in some of these features. So basketball, futsal, you can see, you know, very interested, and that will help to kind of gauge what features, the size of certain features. So please feel free to respond to that as well. And then we are recording this session, so that will be shared out on Reflow's website, and Lisa will share an email after this meeting tomorrow with the link for this recording as well. Okay, and Mr. Russo, any thoughts, last questions before we break? Is there anything else that anyone wants to mention, to just kind of hear out before we kind of keep this board open for more feedback? And then we'll take all of these thoughts, and then we'll provide an updated draft next month. So what I'm hearing is what we just talked about, another outdoor classroom, the futsal, bioswale, kind of merging the two plans between this month and last month, and trying to get that kind of third outdoor classroom space on the schoolyard as well. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, we can't live without the soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, unless, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Please feel free to provide that feedback again, and we'll see you all next month. Lisa, can you remind me our next meeting date in May?
It's May 17th at 2:30.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.